When you think innovation, you think Silicon Valley. Tell me about it, Jim.
Avatar.
Well, what about Avatar?
Well, that's, I think when people look at innovation, I think technology is an enabling tool that has made all of Hollywood possible. But I don't think anything of technology means anything unless you add creativity. Ultimately, it's a little red light that goes on when you turn on your TV, and there's nothing on.
Right.
So unless you add the creativity of great artists, including Will, those two things are symbiotic. Those two things really go together. And what technology has done is it's enabled the vision and the creativity of artists to reach their maximum potential, and it continues to do that.
But tell me what tell me what Hollywood has done to motivate entrepreneurs, motivate innovators, motivate scientists. Because we talked about Star Trek earlier.
Yeah.
Because I was inspired. The reason why I was so interested in science fiction was because of Star Trek.
Well, they watch the movies. That's ultimately, those are those kids grew up watching those movies and saying, I want to invent that machine.
Right.
I want to fly to that planet. I want to kill those aliens. I want that ray gun. Ultimately, that's what inspired a lot of people to be scientists, to be engineers, to want to explore.
What I was trying to bring out was that the replicators we heard about today, the communicators, all these great technologies, they all started with ideas from Hollywood. You've challenged us in Silicon Valley to think bigger.
Well, once again, it is symbiotic because, people look at those things and they say, I want to invent them. The people who create those things, writers, filmmakers, Jim Cameron started out as a physicist, so those things aren't created, those things come from the real world, and then they're embellished and they're created and they're drawn from great science fiction writers, they're drawn from the real world, and then they're made into wonderful stories and wonderful science fiction and wonderful iterations that become movies. Right. And then they become the real world, which is what Singularity is about.
Well, when you think entertainers, you don't think smart. But I tell you, both times I met you, I've been blown away with how smart you are.
Whoa, wait a minute. Okay, all right, let's just take a beat.
All right. I know I was going to take a whack for that. But respond to me.
What do you want me to respond to?
No. Tell me what you think about Hollywood's role in innovation.
Well, when you think of
I was teasing about the smart thing. I mean,
no,
really
it's cool,
was.
It's cool. If you think of Hollywood versus Silicon Valley, and not just Hollywood with movies, but Hollywood as music as well, what you had was a marriage of art and science. The science it took to make that camera work, and the art for the scripts and the directors and the actors and actresses to play those roles. Or Nikola Tesla's, his Warden Tower, which was meant to broadcast electricity, and the byproduct was, radio. He didn't care about radio, but from radio came a wonderful art form of music. They were doing music before radio. It just was different purpose. And it didn't sell hardware, it sold beer in bars, and when it was illegal to have alcohol and speakeasies. So what you're missing in the Silicon Valley that Hollywood has, and you dare to compare them, is that Silicon Valley doesn't have its art marriage yet. But music, right, and you could use music and epidemic because they spread. So music is a spreading of inspiration. If you were my muse, you would inspire me to create. And all the art that I make will live in a museum. And if you made me laugh, you would be amusing. It's just inspiration. And so music is inspiration traveling. So what the Silicon Valley has done has been able to allow you to take your thoughts and travel them around the world to bring people together. Music was the first social network. So that's what you're missing there.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Absolutely right. Elon, what's your view of the world? I mean, you have a foot both in Hollywood and Silicon Valley somehow. I don't know how you do it. And in space.
Right. I'm really, primarily in technology. I spend about half the week in Silicon Valley, about half the week in LA, but rocket companies down here. Tesla's primarily up there. So, but I think there's no question that there's symbiosis between Hollywood and Silicon Valley and technology. The things that one sees in science fiction movies give you ideas for what you want to try to create in the future,
Right.
And they inspire kids to go into the
Were
sciences.
Were you inspired by science fiction? I mean, look at what
Yeah,
you've
absolutely.
achieved.
I was definitely inspired by science fiction. Both books and movies. I really loved Asimov's Foundation series, Heinlein's The Moon is the Harsh Mistress, and of course I watched Star Trek, which is I think everyone watched that.
Right.
So it really sort of it creates this sense of possibility that you want to make real,
Right.
and then making it real is a very difficult process, but over time we've been able to do that. If you look at the cell phones that we take for granted today, I mean they're actually way more advanced than what you'd see in a Star Trek episode. You've basically got a supercomputer in your pocket. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to do a few other things, like our advancements in space travel have not matched advancements in communications and computing and that kind of thing. And so that's something that we need to do. So we need to.
Are you going to do it?
Yeah, I mean the aspiration is. Well, I hope so.
Right.
The aspiration of SpaceX is to drive forward space technology to the point where we can have a self-sustaining civilization on Mars, to make life multiplanetary.
Right.
Which I think would be the greatest adventure that humanity could ever undertake.
Absolutely.
So-
Absolutely. Well, I want to, before I ask Jim, I want to ask you, where do you think technology is headed? Take out your crystal ball, a decade from now, 2 decades from now. What do you see happening?
Music is going to be over completely. No, I'm joking. No, I'm not. So technology, we use the word, the concept of Star Trek. But no one ever thinks about the people that Star Trek left behind in the ghettos, because you never talk about those things. Like, what was the life like for the people that Star Trek left? They were off living this great space life. But the people in the ghetto, godly, they never even put a perspective on homeboy's family with the little visor. His mom's in the ghetto somewhere. I'm just saying. So technology, we're at the we're just fresh out of 12 years old, and it's in its teens right now, and it could go either way, right? It can be the prize for humanity, the thing that we created, like, whoa, check this out, or it could be the doom. And as fast as technology is growing, it's $1 billion industry, and it's not slowing down because there's no Congress to stop it. There's no red state or blue state figuring out if we're going to make the chip even faster. They don't have to worry about that. We're going to make the chip faster. Right. It's just going, and it's going, and it's going. But the same isn't for my little 7-year-old niece. It's not going for her. She's going to grow up 20 years from now dumber than my phone.
No,
That's funny.
It's a real concern.
That's
Absolutely
funny.
A real concern.
But it's so scary.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, those who fly commercial go to the airport and we take off all our clothes in the name of Homeland Security, knowing that the TSA is not qualified for a real threat. But I'm going to put my tax dollars in the concept of safety, but our youth are not safe at all because they're going to grow up in the world tomorrow and they can't compete with what you're building. It's real.
Sorry.
No, it's not sorry. It's just the reality that we all have to, who the developers, right? I'm excited about technology, but the reason why I'm here is so I could go back to the ghetto and tell these kids what's going on over here. So they could take an interest over here. So they could want to be scientists and technicians and engineers and mathematicians.
Well, I tweeted earlier on that you've challenged Singularity University and challenged me to think bigger because we have to get to the ghettos. We have to help those people. So your message heard loud and clear. Yeah. Now let me say, earlier today, Troy Carter, who's someone I hold in amazingly high regard, made a comment about you. He says, Vivek, I was blown away with how much Gianopulos gets it. He says, I haven't met someone at his level who really understands technology and has a vision like you do.
That was nice.
Yeah, and I was blown away. This is a Hollywood player basically talking so highly about you. Tell me, what's your vision of technology? Where do you see things headed in the next 10 years?
Well, to start with, I think, to go back to your earlier comment about, the Silicon Valley and Hollywood, I think people assume antagonism where there's occasionally friction, because film is technology. If you saw Hugo, from its earliest days, film is technology. Film wouldn't exist without technology. The advances in film, sound, color, special effects, every aspect of film, the distribution of film, all the ways we enjoy film today, and especially in digital form, couldn't exist without technology. And every advance in technology in film and the ability for people to enjoy it on various devices in various ways couldn't exist without the advances in technology, and most of those are coming from Silicon Valley, and Hollywood embraces and applauds them, and anybody who doesn't is a Neanderthal. So I don't get this idea that Hollywood is afraid of Silicon Valley.
Comment on SOPA while you're at it.
So we'll get to SOPA, because that was an example of friction, and the friction came from a real misunderstanding of intentions and meaning. SOPA started out as a very basic bill which was intended to stop bad guys from selling things to people that they didn't intend to buy. That's really what it was. It included things like you thought you were buying Timberland shoes and you were buying things where the sole would fall off. You thought you were buying blood pressure medicine and you were buying, a placebo that they sold you at 80% of the cost, because when they sold it at 40% of the cost, people got suspicious. This I heard from the senator who sponsored the bill. So, it wasn't just about Hollywood, it was about people being cheated on the internet. Right. And then what happened was people got a little nervous about, oh, wait, people are actually going to regulate the internet, and maybe the people regulating it will be dopey people who are not sure about what they're doing, and that's bad. So they lit up a lot of people who weren't sure about the meaning of the bill, and that caused a tsunami of concern that turned into a political protest that scared the heck out of a lot of people who were about to vote for it.
That's a good perspective.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
It's really simple, because it doesn't come out of the Senate Judiciary Committee unanimously because they are a bunch of evil people trying to kill everybody on the internet. Right. And the people who said, here's Hollywood, this is going to destroy the internet, as most of these people here will tell you, was created to withstand nuclear attack. So how Hollywood was going to destroy the internet was, was beyond my understanding.
I hope that our friends over here report on it.
So, but in the process of misconception and perhaps badly wording or whatever, things got out of hand, and now it has to be reformed, and now it has to find its proper balance. It's that simple.
Right.
That's friction. That's not a war of Hollywood and Silicon Valley, and anyone who sees it that way doesn't understand it.
Absolutely. Elon, let's say you succeed with Tesla, which I hope you do, and with SpaceX. Now you bought General Motors, you bought Chrysler, you bought Ford, and you've taken over NASA. What's next? I'm looking a decade forward.
I'm pretty sure we won't be buying those companies. Well, maybe I just say a little bit about technology and why I think it's cool. Why I got into it is because.
I want to know what's next. I don't want to look back.
Well,
I want to look forward.
I mean, but
you think bigger than anyone else does, okay?
I mean, I think the thing that we're most focused on at Tesla is accelerating the transition to sustainable transport, which I think is extremely important for the world on many levels.
Right.
And serving as a catalyst, both in the cars that we make ourselves as well as the cars we help others make. So we do powertrains for Mercedes and Toyota and that kind of thing. So. Right. And then at SpaceX, the overarching goal of SpaceX is the settlement of Mars, to make life multiplanetary, which I think is, will be one of the, I think probably the greatest adventure that humanity ever undertakes, and create an enormous opportunity on the surface of Mars. But we need to have a transport mechanism that's capable of getting there.
The SSS Enterprise?
Well, something like that. I mean, it might not look quite like that, but it's we need a spaceship that can do interplanetary travel. It's about time.
Right.
And I think that's something that would actually inspire people all around the world. Because if you think of, say, the Apollo moon landings, I mean, it was only a handful of people that went to the surface of the moon. But actually, we all went there. I mean, the whole world went there. I mean, that inspired kids, people, the whole planet.
Right.
You know, it's one of those things that made you glad to be a human being.
Absolutely.
So I think we want more of that stuff.
Right. Rob, are we out of time? Or do we have? Let me tell you what, let's do concluding thoughts. Whatever you want to say to the audience about the future of technology or Hollywood, go for it. Jim, you start.
Well, I guess I think the future of technology reflected here is that technology enables really great creators to truly realize their vision, and for people all over the world to experience it in ways that they haven't before. And that's just looking at it from the Hollywood perspective. And the incidental, as I call it, friction that exists today, whether it's piracy, which is a real serious issue and has to be resolved, or the political issues that are attendant to it need to be resolved. But it really does provide a great horizon for not just Hollywood, but anyone holding a $10, $100, whatever camera to be able to capture and create. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity for people all over the world.
Right. Will, you've inspired us. What more do you want to say?
Well, if you think of the innovation when they thought to put a horse's tail on a wooded stick and make paint that inspired painters to paint, and the technology it took for paint to last a long time, and you have a classic painting for time, and then from that point on, the technology of printing sheet music, because if you were a conductor, you were privileged to have sheet music to write it out for a whole orchestra to play, and as you conducted. But then when the printing press came along, it created our publishing industry. So it was the marriage of art and science. And the marriage of art and science that created the movie industry, and the architects that made the theaters and the basilicas. So we haven't seen the marriage of code writers and dreamers in the arts, because it's an art of its own. Applications. Look at what apps did in the past. How many years? It ain't even been that long, apps. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to the Silicon Valley and these geniuses that are doing incredible things, that marriage is the one we haven't seen yet. We don't know what industry it's going to forge. We don't know the minds from these 5-year-olds, these 3-year-olds that are touching televisions like, this doesn't work, mommy. They're touching a television like it's an iPad. An iPad's not even old. Just think of how it's changed the human mind from when we were 3. We didn't touch a magazine and want the pictures to move. So that simple thing of what it's done to the human mind, of how you see a window, we're going to say when I'm 60 years old, I'm going to tell my little grandson, I remember when a window was just a window. We used to look out the window. You never know what a window is going to be until you marry art and science for this era. And that's the reason why I'm so passionate about the dreamers. All the dreams came from the people in the ghetto, because that's the only way to escape a nightmare, is to dream out of it. You don't wake up from a nightmare, you're just going to go back to sleep in another motherfucking nightmare.
Peter, we need him on our faculty.
You dream out of it.
Can you make it happen? Elon, your thoughts? Well, that was just very touching, amazing. I'm blown away.
But it's going to happen regardless.
Right.
Maybe it's Singularity University. Maybe it's NASA. Maybe it's probably going to be Elon Musk, because people like me, I waited in line for my Tesla. I got the new one coming.
He can get you bumped up.
Honestly,
thank you, by the way. That's cool of you.
These guys, the Dean Kamens, the Elon Musk, these are the heroes of this era.
But if you read abundance, no. If you read abundance, you realize that you can be the hero of this era as well. Anyone can now do what previously only governments and rich people like him could do.
No. You can't look at it that. We can't. Hey, I'm supposed to be the shallow one. But you can't look at him as a rich person. He's a dreamer that was able to have 4 dreams. He had one dream, then he dreamt how to turn that dream into reality, and he dreamt up his own obstacle to fix the obstacle. You can't just have one dream, you have to have 4 dreams, and he did it, and that's the reason why I'm sitting here talking with a guy from Tesla.
All right, you get the last word, my friend.
I love you, Will.
Final words.
Well, I think I'd really just like to emphasize what Peter was saying at the beginning, which is, on his book Abundance, and I think we get sometimes too wrapped up in the negativity of the world, and it's not like we should ignore the negativity or get complacent or anything, but I think we should also recognize that life is pretty good,
Right.
And if we can't be pretty happy with the way things, with what we have and where things are, well, I mean, then we'll never be happy. This is pretty great.
Right.
So I think people should just, generally have a more positive attitude, because that's the underlying reality. Yeah, and I think in the 21st century we'll see lots of exciting things happen. And I think we'll see the transformation of transportation and energy production. We'll hopefully see a base on Mars. I mean, that's a sort of, I guess, my ultimate dream. If SpaceX can help us make that transportation happen, then I think we would enable enormous opportunities for anyone who's able to go over there and create things on another planet. Just like, when you had the Union Pacific come to California, and people initially said, well, there's no one in California, what are you going to do? And now look, we're on this movie studio lot.
But you have to be very careful. There was a lot of politics that went involved. The reason why we still don't have a freaking subways, because they wanted to have more cars and cars and cars and cars, and messed up our whole transportation in a way. So you have to have some type of, like, you can't be too glee, like you ain't really paying attention to what the potential is going to be. Because you could be like LA, which is like the worst developed city where the traffic is horrible.
I want to thank 3 amazing people for their time. This was just an amazing. I wish we could talk for 2 more hours, but we can't. Thank you.
Thank you.